Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Badadhari Jaya Giri Badadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Giri Badadhari Jaya Giri Badadhari Jaya Yasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yasoda Nandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Srila Prabhupada Ki Go Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Good morning. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 71, and there's a series of 4 verses that we are looking at. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, this is the later verse that's on the board. So I'll do the preliminary verses before we get there. So this is starting from verse 20. It yukta prashtito duto yatavad abadan nripan Te pisandarshanam shore pratyakshan yan mumukshavaha. Thus addressed, the messenger departed and accurately relayed the Lord's message to the kings. Eager for freedom, they then waited expectantly for their meeting with Lord Krishna. So the kings had been kidnapped by Jarasandha, and they were completely distraught, distressed. Somehow or other, they had enlisted the help of a messenger who went to Lord Krishna and really asked him, can you help us? Can you save us? So the Lord said, yes, but he has to do something else prior to helping them. So they went back, and you can imagine the kings, and the word here is mumukshava. They're eager for liberation. And one side you can say they're eager to be liberated from being incarcerated in some kind of confinement. The details of their confinements are not described in this particular part, maybe described elsewhere. They're obviously contained against their will, and they're suffering. And they have an evil person overseeing them. So they want to be freed from that. But the connotation here is they want to be freed also, they want to be freed by Krishna in the real sense. And another word that's interesting comes out is that pratyakshan, they're awaiting the presence of the Lord. And just like you could say, if you're waiting for somebody, you know, some VIP, someone who's really dear to you is going to come, then you're waiting for them. You're thinking, when are they going to come? When are they going to come? You're looking this way, you're looking that way. This way they describe that. They're looking everywhere. Of course, they don't know where the Lord is, when he's going to come. He's not going to come immediately because he's got some time to get there. But they have that kind of expectancy. And in their condition, they're really, really suffering. And when you're really, really suffering, every moment is stretched out. So there's a very short purport with this. The great Vaishnava scholar Srila Jiva Goswami comments here that by force of circumstances, the kings began focusing their attention on Lord Krishna alone. Sometimes we find that in our own lives, that we may be a little casual in our thinking. And then something forces us to start thinking about the Lord. And as devotees, we're very happy that that opportunity comes to concentrate our attention on Lord Krishna. It's one of the common themes that we come across in the Srimad Bhagavatam. As you probably are aware, these purports at this stage of the Bhagavatam for the last, 50 verses, 50 chapters, has been translated by Radhananda Maharaj. And what I understand is Gopi Pranadhan, he's translating all the commentaries. So he's translating the commentaries of Jiva Goswami and Sridhar Goswami, and then he's giving that to Radhananda Maharaj, and then Radhananda Maharaj is compiling those commentaries and giving his purport, condensing those things together. And so all the 10th canto, from Srila Prabhupada's final chapter, to the last 10 chapters of the 10th canto were purported by Radhananda Maharaj. And he was mentioning one place, I was listening, he was doing about 40 verses a day to kind of complete his work on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. And the last 10 chapters of the 10th canto where the purports are Gopi Pranadhan. And Radhananda Maharaj mentioned that was given to him as a kind of honor for the service that he was doing in translating and completing the Bhagavatam purports. So they were kind of a combination of the two. And so Gopi Pranadhan, who was kind of leading, in one sense, the Sanskrit studies prior to Radhananda Maharaj's expertise in Sanskrit, then so he would do the translations of the commentaries, and then Radhananda Maharaj would do the purports. And the 11th and 12th canto are also Radhananda Maharaj, just to kind of give you some context there. And, okay, next verse. This is 21. Anarta sovira marums tirtva vinashanam hari Giran Nadir Atiyaya Puragrama Rajakaran. As he travelled through the provinces of Anarta, which is Dwarka, Sovira, which is the eastern Gujarat and the desert for Rajasthan, Marudesha, which is interesting. Anyway, he crosses Anarta, Sovira, Marudesha, and Vinasana. Lord Hari crossed rivers and passed mountains, cities, villages, cow pastures, and quarries. Interesting quarries. If you have gold and you have metals of some sort, you have to quarry it. If you have marble, I notice now you got in your hallway outside, got these beautiful green marble pillars. Anyway, if they're real green marble pillars, then they have to be quarried from somewhere. So that was passed. This is one of the verses. I'm actually doing a study project at the moment. So I'm compiling all the verses of the Bhagavatam that have any mention to cows, calves, bulls, oxen, grass, anything to do with cows. And this would be one of the verses that I would capture. And there's about 600 verses in the Bhagavatam that have something to say, something to give indication of the importance of cows and cow protection. And this is one of the verses that's there. Interesting enough, in the 10th canto, which may not be surprising, there are 300 verses about cow protection. So this is a verse about cow pastures. And in that society, then you would, if you were traveling from one place to the other, then you would pass many different things. And one of the things you'd pass is places where cows are pastured. Interestingly, the distance between Dwarka and Hastinapur is about 1,500 kilometers. And you saw on the previous verse, yesterday, we were hearing about the conveyances, and some of them were conveyed by humans, human palanquins. So basically this whole carriage or procession of thousands and thousands of beautiful people and armies and is traveling at walking pace. So you can estimate that maybe they're doing 25 kilometers a day, perhaps. And it's not so straightforward. Are they sleeping outside? Are they living just under the stars? Or do they have to have a tent? And just like, for example, when the Padayatra is walking from place to place, there's a forward party. They have to go to the place first and set up the campsite. So people arrive there and the camp's already set up. When I was in the Marines, in the headquarters, they had there was two headquarters, headquarter A and headquarters B. And one would be moving and setting up, and the other one would be operating. And the idea was if one got taken out, the other one would still function. So you have to go to one place, set up, and then you actually continue with your activities. So in the olden days, when armies were moving, they had to go to a certain point, then they set up, and they had to start cooking, and then they have people to sleep. So I think in those days, if you got 4 miles a day in the military, that was quite a good pace, you could say. And those armies that weren't shackled by so much baggage, they could really, they'd go quite swift and eat kind of hard rations of sort. But here, this is a huge festival going on. So they're moving slowly, 25 kilometers an hour. And they're passing places where cows. Before I go there, I'm going to go back a little bit, because one of the conveyances described is controversial, or has been controversial, or maybe not be controversial if you're not into the field of cow protection, is they're carried by humans. Now, I'm assuming that means palanquins. And camels, bulls, buffaloes, donkeys, bullock carts. So here, the word in the Sanskrit is go, which just means cows, but the Maharaj translated it as bulls. And normally, you think about that. If you say, okay, I'm going by cows on a journey. we think, okay, you mean you're going on a bullock cart. That's how we would naturally interpret that. There are some verses in the Bhagavatam that specifically use the word vrisha, which means they're riding actually on a fully potent breeding bull. Like, for example, Lord Shiva is bull. It's clearly a breeding bull. And anyone who knows, anyone who's interacted with a bull or a bullock, know there's a big difference. There's a different mentality completely. A bull it's got like a lust radar. It's always on the hunt for breeding with the cows, and a lot more untrustworthy. So normally you wouldn't expect to be riding on a bull, but there are a number of places in the Bhagavatam where we're riding on the back of a bull. So here, cows, you can ride on the back of a bull. So there's a verse that you may come across. I wrote a book, and I put one of those, I think it's Manu Samhita or Shiva Purana, and it says, anyway, riding on a bull is a blamable act. So it suggests that you should not ride on the back of bulls. Anyway, I did a bit of research trying to understand that, and there was a commentator who was commentating on the Manu Samhita, and he was saying that what this means is you should not ride on the back of a bull without a saddle. So sometimes the verses of the Manu Samhita are practical. I mean, one of them says, don't do your studying of Shastra in the cow pen. Why? Well, you might get trampled on. You might get gored on. So there's practical message in that. So you can see if you ride on a bull without a saddle, it's a bit more risky. So if you fall off and get hurt, you're to blame. So that's kind of interpretation of it. So there's nothing that I've read so far in the Bhagavatam that says it is wrong, sinful to ride on the back of a bull. In fact, there's a number of places where it is described, and this is one of them. This journey from Dwarka to Hastinapur, there are people riding on the back of bulls. There's also bullock carts, which is more particular. The pastimes of Govardhan Leela, the gopis were riding on the back of bullock carts. But here there's also bullock carts. And they're passing through pastures. And even now on the way from Calais to here, we passed many pasturing grounds. The cows are there in the fields. Difference between then and now is that in the time of Krishna, no one would dare harm a cow. We know that Parikshit Maharaj, even the slight whiff of someone hurting the legs of a cow or a bull, that was the death penalty. Nowadays, there's no death penalty for harming cows or bulls. Maybe there's cows and bulls, there's a huge scope of, you could say, abuse you can do to them without any kind of criminal activity. Pets probably less so, more risky. But so everywhere you go, even nowadays, you see, you go past pasturing grounds of cows. And all these cows are, the Bhagavatam seems to say, they're the same category of cow everywhere you go. It doesn't make a distinction of cows that happen to be protected and cows that don't be protected from the Bhagavan perspective. So Queen Kunti, when she prays, Govinda, Go, Dvija, Sura, Arta, Hara, Avatar, she's praying that Govinda, you come, you descend, Avatar, Govinda, Go, Dvija, the Brahmanas, Dvijas, Govinda, Go, cows, Brahmanas, demigods, you come to relieve them of their distress. That's a cow. So anywhere that you see a cow, and that's just not mean female cows, it means a bull or an ox or a calf, anything to do with a cow is in that category. Brahmanas, demigods, cows. That's the lineage that they're on. You don't find giraffes on that level. You don't find alligators on that level. You don't find cats on that level. But quite a few times in the Bhagavatam, that link is there. Brahmanas, cows, demigods. And it's not always written that the cows are first listed. Sometimes other things are listed first. I recall there was one demigod mentioned, but they're there. They're all in that same category. So this is the elevated status that they're on. And yesterday we were hearing from Prabhuji on his presentation about prema culture, how you've got permaculture, you've got ecology, then you've got the mode of goodness, and that kind of leads to devotional service. You're showing how permaculture leads you on your path back to Godhead. So the cows are on that same path. By interacting with them, you're progressing yourself in life. And from that perspective, you see that Krishna has arranged that cows are everywhere on this world. They're just everywhere. And they're just pouring out their benevolence to humanity. They're giving their manure, which is fertilizing the fields and nourishing the crops. And most farmers want more manure. Their urine is medicinal. The cow dung is medicinal. If you scratch a cow's chin, or you give it some grass, or you give it some comfort, then that's a way to directly worship Lord Krishna, as described in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So every cow is this, you could say, a vehicle to reciprocate with a divine platform. Maharaj termed it bovinity. So there's something divinely placed about cows, and if you interact with them, you enter that space. So anyone who interacts with a cow is entering a very important area for their own progression. But we know today that those cows, although they're so benevolent, that benevolence is not fully appreciated, and they're also seen as food. So in those days, hardly a cow was harmed. These days, hardly a cow is not harmed. So these conferences are about reminding us that we've got to keep progressing on increasing the numbers of cows that are not harmed. So this is one of those verses that's talking about bringing again that this culture is completely intertwined with cows and bulls and oxen and calves. Even everything, it comes up so many times in everything we do. So we're trying to activate or reintegrate cow protection into our lives, really. I mean, already it's there. For example, we all drink milk, or if we don't drink milk, we drink a milk alternative, which is simply a pseudo milk. Our connection is with milk and cows, but we might, for various reasons, choose an alternative, but it's still, our yearning is for cows. So we're trying to fulfill the aspirations of Srila Prabhupada and have our own cows and have those cows protected and get our dairy products and have our life integrated with cow protection. This verse gives some of those things. I'm going to come back to the cow protection shortly. I'll go on further. Rajadutam uvachedam bhagavan prinayan gira ma vaishta duta badram vo gata yeshyami magadam. With pleasing words, the Lord addressed the messenger sent by the kings. My dear messenger, I wish all good fortune. No, sorry, I went back and couldn't go forward again. I just quoted the wrong verse, sorry. Tato drishtad vitam titva mukundo ta sarasvatim panchalam matamatyams cha shakrapashtan atagamat. After crossing the rivers Drishtadvati and Sarasvati, he passed through Panchala and Matsya and finally came to Indraprastha. So again, just think about, okay, there's some logistical issues here. You're passing a river. Recently I was invited by Kalakanta to accompany his teams in doing a survey of all the Goshalas in India. There's 70 Goshalas in India. So I was on the kind of eastern and southeastern team. And we came to the river Godavari. And it was 3 kilometers across. There's one Goshala there. It's 3 kilometers across. It's the biggest bridge, I think, of any river in India. Anyway, I don't know how big these rivers are. The river Panchala and the river Drishtadvati and the Sarasvati, but there's no bridge there. I'm presuming there's no bridge that crossed it. So they're going by boat. Now you can imagine the infrastructure and logistics of traversing that huge, thousands and thousands of people traversing a river by boat. And I think elephants were also part, well, camels certainly are described there, so they all have to be transported across on boats to the other side. Quite an amazing adventure. And my wife and I, we came by ferry from Dover to Calais. It's a bit of adventure getting on a boat. It's some kind of thing. There's some organisation to get onto the boat, make sure you're all safe as the boat goes on. So all these people and kings and princes and princesses, they're all being transported across the river like that. And finally they get to Indraprastha. Tam upagatam akarnya prito dudashanam rinam ajata shatru nigagat sopadyayat suridvrata. King Yudhishthira was delighted to hear that the Lord, whom human beings rarely see, had now arrived. Accompanied by his priests and dear associates, the king came out to meet Lord Krishna. Gita, okay, now we're here. Gita Vaditra Goshena Brahma Goshena Bhuyasa Abhyayatsa Rishikesham Prana Pranam Ivadrita. Gita of song, Vaditra, and instrumental music. Goshena, with the sound. Brahma, of the Vedas. Goshena, with the sound. Bhuyasa, abundant. Abhyayat, went forth. Saha, he. Rishikesham, to Lord Krishna. Prana, the senses. Pranam, consciousness or the life of air. Eva, as. Adritaha, reverential. Translation. As songs and musical instruments resounded along with the loud vibration of Vedic hymns, the king went forth with great reverence to meet Lord Hrishikesh, just as the senses go forth to meet the consciousness of life. Repetitively, please. As songs and musical instruments resounded, along with the loud vibration of Vedic hymns, the king went forth with great reverence to meet Lord Hrishikesh. Just as the senses go forth to meet the consciousness of life. Purport by Rinanda Das Goswami. Lord Krishna is here described as Hrishikesha, the Lord of the senses, and King Yudhishthira's rushing to the Lord is compared to the senses eagerly joining the consciousness of life. Without consciousness, the senses are useless. Indeed, the senses function through consciousness. Similarly, when the individual souls are bereft of Krishna consciousness, love of God, they enter into a useless and illusory struggle called material existence. Pure devotees like King Yudhishthira are never bereft of the Lord's association, for they keep him always within the heart, and yet they feel special ecstasy when they see the Lord after long separation, as described here. So this is something that we go through the same thing every day. This, for example, songs, musical instruments, and the Vedas to meet the Lord. This morning, before deity greeting, there is songs and musical instruments And then when the curtains open, there is the recitation of the Govindam prayers. So this experience of the residents of Hastinapur and Yudhishthira, this is something that we are also entering into every day. I should say what is there, Varitra, Madhya, Manasora Sena, the song we sing every morning for Mangalarti, that same word is there about the musical instruments, singing Gita, Bhagavad Gita, the song of Krishna. So the singing and musical instruments, and there's the Vedas, and it's abundant. This is a word that Kalakanta likes to use. That's care protection and agriculture creates an abundancy, abundant. So this is abundant sound. There's lots of sound, lots of music, and this is what is characterized in our Krishna consciousness. We have abundance of sound. Oftentimes we're too abundant with our sound. Sometimes our devotees have to relocate from their home because their abundant sound wasn't neighborly appreciated. So stay very careful. I remember one time, the first temple I stayed at was at Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow. And Sauchiehall Street the temple was right above a pub. So there's probably a lot of cross-pollination of music. Something coming up from the floor and something going down to transcendentalize the pub dwellers. Anyway, so we're specialists in loud chanting and dancing, and we like loud kirtan. I remember that when I first got introduced to, I remember there was a time when Jayapataka Maharaj would always visit every Rath Yatra in the world, and he was accompanied by mega wampers, boom, 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 boom. That was kind of his speciality, huge wampers. So we specialize in loud music. So here you can imagine what's going on here, that Yudhishthira Maharaj, he's really, really excited. What we mentioned is that actually it's not that suddenly, Krishna's coming, I better remember him. What has been mentioned in the purport is that Yudhishthira was always thinking of the Lord, always thinking about Krishna. But now it's an opportunity to be specially ecstatic in his experiencing extraordinary or special ecstasy, that now Krishna's coming personally, face to face. I mean, it's like that now, isn't it? When there's someone who's very dear to you spiritually, but by force of circumstances mostly, they're not there. They're doing whatever they're doing in other parts of the world or whatever. So you may have them in their mind thinking about the nourishment that they give and the relationship that you have with them. But when they actually arrive, then it's more exciting. It's now a chance to have face-to-face opportunity to meet them. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is really, really ecstatic, really, really enthusiastic, and obviously he's a king. He arranges a beautiful reception for Krishna, not just Krishna, this huge, you can imagine, this parade of soldiers and all the different vehicles coming down with carrying various kind of people, beautifully dressed, full of gold and jewelry, all the best that humanity could provide. They're adorned with these things, and they're all beautiful and full of devotional potency. So they've come, and Yudhishthira, he's feeling this urgency, and he described here just like the senses and consciousness, they're connected together. You can't separate them. The senses only exist because of consciousness. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is feeling, I only exist because of Lord Krishna. So that's, you could say, something for us to aspire to, have that level of Krishna consciousness, that we feel my whole existence all the time is dependent on the Supreme Lord. So this is what Yudhishthira here is expressing. So I'm going to divert slightly back into the topic of care protection if I can. And actually it's the previous verse, the previous chapter was very important about Lord Krishna's daily activities, and you can see how important they are to how he exhibited his life. So you've already studied that some weeks before, but I wanted to just reflect on some of the comments, some of the information that comes out from it that's relevant to us. So in this pastime of Lord Krishna's activities, he gets up in the morning and obviously his wives are perplexed. How can he leave my side? Not only are they Krishna conscious, but he's right there next to them. And the morning is the time of anxiety because he has to get up and leave them by their side. So they didn't like that anyway. But the Lord has to do what he does, and he has to show us how to lead his life. So one of the morning activities was that he would offer oblations into the sacred fire, which is ghee. Actually, the topic of ghee comes up so many times. Of these 600 verses, many, many times, I'm almost repetitively talking about ghee and fire yoga, ghee and fire yoga. There all the time. It's almost a little alien to us now in our sadhana practices, because we don't do very many fire yogas. And when we do, if I may say it, hopefully by expressing my ignorance, we do it almost as a ceremonial kind of festive occasion. It's not that we're necessarily feeling it as part of our daily sadhana. We don't have a fire yoga, we don't feel we've lost something. We don't chant around, we definitely feel I've not done what I'm meant to do. If we don't hear or read or go to Bhagavatam or associate devotee, we feel it that we're neglecting something. But we don't feel if we've missed a yajna, we've missed something that's going to affect us. Whereas in this time, in this culture, fire yogas was an important part of their expression and their connection with the Lord. In fact, that's what they felt. It's like nowadays we can pick up our WhatsApp and we can talk to someone other side of the world. By these fire yogas, they were able to commune with the demigods. They were able to commune with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not my expertise, I'm just touching on that topic. You'll have more realizations about that methodology. But they'd use ghee. And you can get ghee from any cow. Of course, it doesn't come out as ghee, it comes out as milk. I was talking to some devotees a couple of days ago, and we're going to get a report from one of our farms in northern Italy. And what had happened was someone who was a farmer became a devotee who had a herd of cows. So what do you do? What do you do if a farmer becomes a devotee? He's got a herd of cows. It happened in England. We had Chaitanya College, someone nearby got interested in becoming a devotee. He had a herd of cows. So from being a cow slaughterer, you had to become a cow protector, and suddenly you've got an extra 40 cows that you have to think about what you're going to do with. There's a devotee in Alachua, and he wanted to buy a farm nearby the temple. Well, he wanted to buy some land. He wanted to live in a house near Alachua. So there was a plot of land, I don't know, maybe 10 acres. Of course, in America, when you buy a farm, when you buy a house, you buy a big plot of land. In England, you buy a house, you might get a garden. Or if you're in a flat, you don't get a garden, you might get a window box. So if you get a garden that's like 30, 20 meters, that's a big garden. I know the same here in Belgium, but certainly in England, it's like that's a big garden. It gets about 30 meters. So in America, you buy a house and you get like an acre or 2 acres or 4 acres around it. Anyway, he bought this. He wants to buy this plot of land, and there was a herd of Aberdeen Angus cows on the land. And Aberdeen Angus are not dairy cows; they're bred for killing. That's what they breed them for. So, in consultation with the farmer made the point that if you don't buy the cows, I'm going to kill them. I mean, they're going to die anyway. That was their, you could say, path. Anyway, he decided, no, I'm going to keep these cows. So he made the choice of buying the farm and buying the cows. So now if you go there, you can still see some Aberdeen Angus outside his house. What he did say was interesting. He said that he attributed his fortune economically from making that decision of looking after the cows. Although he had, I think it was like 15 of them, 15 Aberdeen Angus cows. Each one must cost, I don't know, $1,000 a year, hay, straw, whatever, veterinary bills. So he made a choice to not only have 15 Aberdeen Angus cows, but also to look after them, watch over them, make sure they got fences, provide for all their needs. But he, one second. But he, he noted that his business started excelling, started becoming more abundant. And he connected the two things together. And many times it's like that. When you start analyzing what's going on, you see that you do certain things in terms of cow protection and things start increasing. The cows start reciprocating extraordinarily. In Sweden, we had a little example of that. We bought these 2 cows in Sweden, milking cows, and they were giving milk, I don't know, 15 litres each a day. And then one of these other cows that had never had a calf thought, I want some of that, because these cows are getting special treatment, a bit more extra grooming, and a bit extra food. So he started bagging up, started producing, revealing milk. Anyway, so she started giving 2 litres of milk a day. And recently we noticed another one was doing that. They have 6 cows, and suddenly a second one started giving milk. She was giving 4 litres a day. And what was interesting, after a while she thought, no, she changed her mind and didn't like this system of, standing there being milked, so she started kicking. So they stopped milking her for a while. And when I was there recently, we wanted to reactivate her benevolence. So we had to oblige her to stand still. Now, she had this tendency that if you got up close, she wanted to kind of kick the bucket and then kick you. So we thought, well, our cows are not familiar with the Indian system. Krishna would carry a rope over his shoulders. The cowherd men, the gopers, would carry a rope, and that rope would be used to tie the cows to a tree, or to put a rope around their back legs, and they would stand still while you milk them. In the West, we use a thing called a kick bar. It's like a C-shaped bar like this, and you hook it under their leg, the crotch of their leg, and then you put it over their back. And if they move their legs, it pinches on their muscles a little bit, so they don't like it. Anyway, the first time we put that on her, she really didn't like it. She jumped and jumped and jumped. Anyway, so it was a bit discouraging because we wanted to milk her. And anyway, the next day we tried something even more drastic. I tried tying her leg to a wooden pole. Oh, she didn't like that. She kicked, even though I'd strengthened the fence, knowing that she may not like it, she pushed, anyway, she kicked the wooden fence, big hole in the wooden fence. Okay, let's try the kick bar again. And so we put the kick bar on again, and this time she accepted it. She realized that we were going to be a bit more determined. And so she accepted it. So now she had another cow giving milk spontaneously. And they had 2 other ones we gave a little milk from, but they were giving so little that the manager wasn't quite sure whether they wanted to persevere with it. And here, this place is famous. You had a cow many years ago, and she had a calf, and then you decided to milk the calf. I think she was about a year old. You were milking the calf as well, and she automatically started producing milk and giving like 7 litres a day. So all cows can give milk, any cow, practically speaking, even without having a calf. In this northern farm, they're not able to milk all the cows that are excited about being on grass and wanting to give milk because of resources, which is a practical issue which we will talk about in our seminar coming up from 10 o'clock or around that time about practical application of cow protection. But any cow can give milk, and if you get milk, you can get butter and you can get ghee, maybe different quantities. In the West, you can easily get 10 litres of milk from a cow. 10 litres is basically inconsequential for dairy farms. If their cows give less than 30 litres of milk a day, they're practically in line to go to not a nice place. But for our kind of standards, on average 10 litres, for example, in the manor they have 100 litres of milk and they've got 10 milking cows, so you get 10 litres per calf. So any cow can give you milk, and from that milk you can get butter. Anyone know how to make butter? Anyone here not made butter? Anyone not made butter? Okay. In its simplest form, you get some whole milk, and you just shake it and 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 shake it eventually the butter will separate. Even with straightforward milk, you get some butter will form in the rest of buttermilk. Normally though, we would take all the cream off and then would agitate the cream with something. Either you bash it around somewhere, either you stir it or use a kind of kitchen blender. That also works well. And the same thing, at some point, all that cream, it formulated to kind of frothy whipped cream, then it looks like ice cream, and then suddenly the water starts coming out. And you keep going, and you're left with the butter and the buttermilk, and you squeeze out all the buttermilk, and then you get left with the butter. If you leave it as it is, it'll sour because it's got buttermilk in it. You have to wash it and wash it and wash it and wash it and wash it to have it as butter. And then if you simmer that butter, just simmer it, and then you get all the solids at the bottom, which is fantastic food for your stir-fry rice or things like that. And what's left is ghee. So any cow, you can get milk, you get butter, and you can get ghee. In India, they make butter from yogurt. And Srila Prabhupada describes that method. In the Indian villages, they would collect the milk. They don't have refrigeration in a traditional system, so therefore you have to do something with the milk straight away. If you leave it as it is, body temperature is going to spoil in one way. So you have to be driving it to the next stage, and therefore you boil it. And then you can drink it boiled, and then you add some culture, and then overnight you turn it into yogurt. The next morning you can agitate the yogurt. And then we have that picture of Mother Yashoda. There's a stick going into the pot of yogurt, and the stick, there's a pole fixed to the ground, and with a rope you turn it this way and turn it that way, and the paddles are going shoo, 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 shoo. And then gradually the butter is formed and the buttermilk is left. That's the kind of Indian system. Anyway, somehow you do it. So all the cows have this benevolence that they can give ghee, can produce ghee. So in those times, in Krishna's morning, he would get up in the morning and he'd have a fire yogi. Now we have a fire yogi too every morning here. We offer ghee wicks to the Lord. That's because they are equivalent of a fire yogi. We offer a flame to the Lord as an offering using ghee. So ghee is very important in Krishna's life. That's what he's showing us. And then every morning, he would offer cows. To those well-attired brahmanas, he would offer herds of tame and peaceful cows with gold-plated horns and pearl necklaces. These cows were also dressed in fine cloth, and the fronts of their hooves were plated with silver. Providers of abundant milk, they had each given birth only once and were accompanied by their calves. So this is a very important cow protection verse, because it tells you, well, first of all, it peels away the sentimentality that any cow will do. Just because all cows are sacred doesn't mean you should give someone a not suitable cow. There's a Bengali saying, why take the trouble of keeping a cow? So better to keep the cowshed vacant than have a cow that doesn't produce milk. In other words, we're not meant to be a society just having cows of non-productivity. This is what Krishna's example tells us. We want cows that are abundant with milk. Here, he's donating heifers. A heifer is a cow that hasn't had a calf yet, or it's just had one calf. So it's in its youthfulness, and the calf is present. In other words, you're not just giving away a cow, and you're not taking account of its calf. So it means the calf is also up to, say, 6 months old. It's not clearly defined in the Shastra exactly what age you do certain things like wean the calf. You definitely wean them. There's definitely verses like that. For example, in the stealing of when Lord Brahma stole the cows, there's a very important verses and pastimes there, that when the cowherd men were at the top of the hill and they were herding their cows, at the bottom were the calves. Now, these calves were these cows' last year's calves. They already had new calves, which were somewhere else. But these calves were the Krishna expansions. So at some point, they had to be separated from those calves, some point in their cow cycle, because they were impregnated again and their new calves are coming. They had to go through the trauma of saying farewell to the suckling of those calves, even though it was Krishna's expansion, in readiness for the new calves. So that verse talks about pregnancies. It talks about separating the calves from the mothers. It talks about grazing separately. In other words, you don't graze calves with cows. The calves have to be managed separately. The cows have to be managed separately. And you also have to wean them. At some point, there's no more milk for the calf. What age is that? It's not depicted there, but it seems in practice about 6 months seems to be about right. Because a calf becomes a teenager at around, or becomes puberty, you could say, if I use that term, around about that age. So a calf that's 6 or 7 months old can impregnate, or occasionally can be impregnated, even though it's not so common. However, many a Goshala has been caught unawares by not paying attention to you could say the potency of a young bull, and are quite surprised how quickly this young bull finds his way around the cows and impregnates them. And there's many Goshalas have fallen victim to that inattentiveness. So about 6 or 7 months seems to be the right time to wean the calf from its mother for those reasons. So these cows that are donated are milk-laden cows, and they have all this beauty connected to them. So it's important for us that there are many. We as a society should show the world we're not sentimentalists. We don't just have cows. We want to show that we have good milking cows that produce lots of milk, and they are protected. So that's what also we can learn from this. Another point, and then I'm going to stop for questions, is that another thing that Krishna would do, and also the numbers there, he'd be giving out 13,000 cows. And we look at the numbers that involved, it means there's millions of cows being donated at different times. In one pastime where King Chikchetu, he gave 600 million cows in charity in appreciation that he had a son. 600 million cows. So you give that a cow protection perspective. If you're giving 600 million cows, then actually how many cows were there in existence at that time? Which means there were billions of cows. So wherever he was, I think it's on the earth, is it Chikchetu on earth? Is it pastime on earth, King Chikchetu? That means the earth had billions of cows at that time. Currently on earth there's 1 billion cows. And so I'm an advocate as we need more cows, not less. We need more protected cows and not... So one final thing. And here, every morning, he would go Vipra Devata Vrida Gurun Bhutani Sarvashaha. He would Namaskrityatma Sambhutir Mangalani Samasprishat. Lord Krishna would offer obeisances to the cows, brahmanas, and demigods, his elders, the spiritual masters, and all living beings, all of whom are expansions of his supreme personality. Then he would touch auspicious things. So one of his daily activities was to offer obeisances to the cows. And also another one here, fourth one here. He would then look at ghee, a mirror, the cows and the bulls, the brahmanas and the demigods. So these are all things of purification. The cow, if you offer obeisance to a cow, doesn't necessarily mean you have to offer full dandavats like a stick. You can bow your head. For example, when King Prithu was bowing to the Lord, he basically just bowed his head. He didn't do full obeisances as we sometimes do in the temple, mostly often do in the temple. It means something to acknowledge respects for the cow. So you could do that every time, we could. So just as a thought, the cows are so important, you can offer respect to them, and this is exactly what Krishna did it in his own life. Okay, so I'll stop there. Anybody has any questions or points?
In our village near Michael, there's a lot of buffaloes. What's their position?
The buffalo, they're also one of the vehicles of transportation. They're transportation, but they're not categorized like that. They're not in the same category as cows. They have the same mother from the demigod side. The same Surabi who produced cows also produced buffaloes, because she produced all the kind of mammals. But they're not in the same status as cows. That's all I can say. Actually, Prue was telling me yesterday that sometimes there's this kind of agitation about A2 milk. So buffaloes have got A2 milk. Anyway, Marge is saying that it's actually this A1, A2, there's nothing concrete about it. It seems like a marketing ploy by the A2 milk sellers. For example, if you're a Lord Shiva follower, you want milk from a brown cow. And in fact, some of the verses about him talk about donating brown cows. So if you're a connoisseur of milk of a particular type, then you might want milk from a brown cow. If you want milk from a Ghir cow, then you get milk from a Ghir cow. If you want milk from a Jersey cow, then you might, but it's just connoisseurship. It's not deep, detailed importance.
A little comment on that. Sunanda, the brother of Nanda. Is it okay? Yes. Sunanda, the brother of Nanda Maharaj, he keeps buffaloes for Krishna's pleasure. That's in the Braj Vilas Stava.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also Krishna would herd buffaloes and goats. He pastimes like that. It also herd bulls too, and also that's the whole discussion. How do you herd cows and bulls, and how do you manage that? If you just let them go to it, you're going to be completely swamped by the numbers of cows and bulls. So breeding has to be managed. Maharaj.
Thank you for enlightening us about cows and milk and ghee. I must say I hadn't thought of the Deepa offering as a kind of substitute for the yajna. That's interesting. I just wanted to mention toward the end you were referring to offering obeisance to cows. And when I was doing research for this book, I visited the Patmeda Goshala complex in southwest Rajasthan, and I was there when their sort of acharya was present. He travels a lot, but he was personally present. Very sweet man, and there were quite good number of people, and they did a kind of worship of the cow one time in the evening. They had a kind of gazebo, and they had one very beautiful white cow, totally peaceful cow, kind of all decorated, and they were offering the arti, and they were doing parikrama, and they were also doing an interesting kind of obeisance, which I participated in. The cow is extremely peaceful and apparently experienced with this kind of worship. You could crawl under the cow as a kind of worship, between not between the legs, front and back, but across. You could crawl underneath, and it was fun. Yeah. So there's all. I wanted to say also that this acharya and others I met who were very much in the sort of cow protection, they're like activists. And in Gujarat especially, they would say to me that in the age of Kali, the Lord appears in the form of cows. So we understand He comes in the form of the holy name, and they're saying, that's all right, but he comes, the deity in this age, because deity worship was from Dvapara Yuga. I say in Kali Yuga, it's the cow. We worship the cow as our deity. That's a nice mood to have.
I recall one time at the manor, someone wanted to put their brand new born baby under the same kind of thing, under the belly of the cow. I didn't thought health and safety would be too much for it to do that, so we didn't permit it. But they want to do it. Cool.
Hare Krishna. We are supposed to follow the Varnashram system. This is ideal, but there is a point that I don't understand about this Varnashram system. Like we read many times in Bhagavatam that these kings used to give thousands of cows in charity to the Brahmanas. But neither the kings or the Kshatriyas, neither the Brahmanas are taking care of the cows, because that's a Vaishya activity. Krishi, Goraksham, Vaniyam. So how to contextualize this? Why the kings added the cows to give to the Brahmanas?
Well, I heard Nandamaj give a comment about this. Nandamaj, and he was talking about giving elephants and villages to Brahmanas, and he explained it that you give it to them, and then someone else looks after it on their behalf, and they get the you could say the wealth from it. So they may not necessarily look after the cows themselves, although it is described that Brahmanas can also look after cows. They can also be cow protectors if they're necessary. But just like, for example, in those days, it's like someone gave you a car. You might take the car and give it to someone who buys it from you, and you might get the revenue from it. We wouldn't refuse gold as Brahmanas, we'd accept it, and we'd do modify it in a way that benefits how we're doing it. So I see it in the same way. You may give them cows, and then they may, have someone else looking after the cows for them, who are probably Vaishyas or Shudras doing the work, and they're getting maintained by the fruits of it, from the milk and the butter and the ghee. That's how I understand it. Of course, in these particular cows that Krishna donating, they got silver plated and gold plated, and they got jewels and things. So that's of immediate value to the Brahmanas. But in those days, milk was their value. Wealth was measured in cows and grains. So definitely a transactionable commodity.
Another point regards the cows that don't give milk, because maybe I didn't understand properly, but you said that we value the cows who give milk, and the others that they don't give milk, like we see in India, they are like roaming around eating plastic, and they are not protected.
Well, I guess I'm saying that to counter information that has circulated, that cow's milk is not important. My reading of the Bhagavatam and these verses confirm that understanding, is that milk is vitally important from a cow. But everything about the cow is a source is benevolent. Everything about her, she's giving. But the other gifts of the cow are not stressed to the same degree. The chamara is mentioned a lot, the tail, just the tail hairs of a cow, that's mentioned. And we also hear that if you wave the tail of a cow, it gives you all protection, complete protection. How? I don't know, it's a mystical process. We do it every day to Srila Prabhupada, the yak tail. But the milk is stressed again and again and again. Butter, ghee, all milk related. We don't hear so many verses. We do hear that the cow dung, cow's urine or uncontaminated. Clear verse in the Bhagavatam talks about that. So milk is definitely high priority. It's the highest priority in terms of the cow. But everything about a cow is benevolent. Its existence is on that same level. And if you're a fundraiser, The cow doesn't even need to give milk. In fact, we milk the cow for her fundraising abilities in greater extent than we do her milk raising, milk giving abilities. And especially in India, where the cows don't give milk, milky, they give a lot of milk financially. Thousands and millions of rupees is donated for cows. So the biggest benevolence actually that we experience is the fact that she's a cow. People give you more money because she's a cow than what you get from the milk. But if you analyze the Bhagavatam, here Krishna was giving milk-laden cows. So that is clearly of great importance to us, that we should have a society where our cows are milk-laden. And we drink milk. A lot of our centres, they got fundraising cows and they buy their milk and dairy products from the stores, which is not protected cows. So we were meant to show the world how to live by protected cows. So we need to protect a lot more cows to show the world how to do it. I think Kalakanapur wanted to have something to say.
Just trying to also shed some light on your question. You said Vaishyas keep cows. Kings would keep cows, and if you read many scriptures, you see that there were even wars around cows, called Gavi wars. And when you have the pastime of the kingdom Virat, they tried to kidnap Virat's cows, and Arjuna protects them single-handed. And the reason is not only for he needed milk for his kingdom, because the king would keep cows of the highest caliber, like Krishna is, and he's distributing to all the Brahmins, who would distribute it to all the villagers. Therefore, the whole status of the herd would increase. Something is done by governments today, but at that time, the consideration was the best breed for that region. And there's a specific breed in India, which is now a heritage breed, which was the favorite of Queen Rukmini. And when she was there, she had those cows, and that cow became a traditional cow in that region until today. But of course, it doesn't give so much milk. The research has stopped, so villagers tend to drop that tradition, but it's still there. Dangi is another breed which is kept in Maharashtra. So Krishna would give the best cows for that region. He wasn't taking a cow from Germany and putting in Belgium, and from Holland and putting in Brazil. He was actually respecting the eco-physiological aspects of that environment. And he did that in such a way that all these cows had names and had qualities which was desirable there. So that was one of the reasons why the kings would keep cows, you know. And a small comment, I really appreciated a point you're trying to stress about the divinity of the cow. I was with an Ayurveda teacher in Eugene, and he's very nice, and he was reading, I said, can you read to me Ayurveda verses which talks about the cows? And he started the introduction, and right there, the cows in Ayurveda comes first. It's cow, Brahmans, and Devas in the Ayurveda text. In that Ayurveda text he was reading. And what that brings to my reflection is that the potencies which have been given to the cows are very subtle and unknown. And because they're subtle and unknown, it's easy to dissociate from the cows because you cannot see those relations. Different from trees. Everybody understands if you cut your relation with trees, you die because you need food. But with cows, they're very subtle, like refining the finer tissues of the brain. So I appreciated you bringing the point of the populations of cows, because that's something that today is attributed to global warming through methane. And it's not the numbers, it's where they're at in that video. It's not the problems of the cow, but where they're at and how they're treated and how the farming system or the care system which they're inserted in. So that was my reflection.
Okay, we should stop here. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki. A reminder that the course, our conference is starting at 10 o'clock in the yoga room.
For Bunny, I run service because you don't know why. Because it's service, right? Only on Monday hours.
You went to them?
Yeah, it's already on.
Oh, then it's service. No, I didn't know. No, because a lot of them for health and all that. So you still put the maps in. But the absence are basically, I know the excuse. So still, he asked for it.
Me and Christian were a little bit too late because we had to take discussion about it.
I was out.
That's service. Yeah, I have to ask him because I think he will definitely come because he's
But that's right, you know, you can know what he's normally every day on Pujaya. Basically, Pujaya means he's normally serving now and now. It's not like he has to be there all the time. So sometimes comes to do it, sometimes he has to be earlier, finish washing the plate. So the point is, unless he's not on service, he's service. It's either present or service. If he's here and we decided he's going to be on present, technically if he's not here, service. But I think on Sunday he's not on Pujaya. So then he's not there. So you just confirm it.
yeah.
Half a pound a day, £1 a day, no weight. So, if you go to any context, we're not saying any kind of
It's good.
Actually, I was here on time.
Yoga's not good, right? So
I came before you.
Right.
I was outside. outside. I was doing some work.
Was it service?
Yeah, no, yeah, I wasn't. It's not like I had to do it. The basically was 2 days I didn't pick my phone up. For yesterday. The whole yesterday, and then I switched it on. So this morning I switched it on. I had to send something. And I had a few questions from yesterday that were waiting answers. So I basically decided to answer them. I could have been targeted with practice. So yeah, I like service, but still, we can always have service. And go and decide, oh, I'm going to do the ashram cleaning now, but service, you're not supposed to.
Only when it's so necessary service.
The point is, if someone is consistent, it's not about being once and once absolutely always on the top. It's about when we see that everyone's like late often, or every week on the same day we're not there. What happens? Or that day is the day I'm just staying in bed and sleeping. And then we have friends because it's not the Southern House life. It's like one day I don't practice on Sunday. Every day. Unless there's exceptions, say, festival. It's not like every week on Monday.
I'm gonna rest, I'm gonna sleep one.
And that should be the day. You have the day, you have a rest, you have the day. But not instead of chanting around early. It's not on a regular basis. Again, exceptions are there. You go out on Saturday night.
On the travel, it's very difficult. I notice now I'm back at Radhadesh.
It's also training. So once you travel, some of them stay more than 2-3 days. How do they manage? It's training. Okay, good. Thank you. If you're not there, then either I can do it, but otherwise someone else.
I'm gonna ask him my problem.
But he should then be there.
He's also not always
Anyway, you manage. I'm here. I can just figure out something.
This is sometimes it's so
To wash it. But technically, especially when you touch it.
I do it like every 3 days.
But when you touch it, should be washed. If you drank from it, you touch it, should be
Yeah,
clean.
most people do touch it.
Yeah, so it should be thrown away.
So
Yeah, the water should be thrown and washed.